Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah, wa ba'd. So as I promised, inshallah, we're going to take only a few minutes to cover this part of this chapter. This is actually a very important chapter that we actually have been dealing with it almost for now more than 5 weeks. And we came to the part of funeral procession and burial. Of course, we mentioned before the way how to make ghusl for the deceased person. We mentioned as for men, how many pieces of cloth should be used to shroud. Yes, 3. Jazakallah khair. As for women, 5. What about the child, boy? And how many? A boy can be 1, it can be 3 too. It can be 1, it can be 3. So 1 it might be enough, and also 3 also is okay. And we mentioned the dua also that we say for the deceased person, and the dua that we say if somebody lost his child. Like now for a child, what the dua should be said if a child dies? What the dua? What the dua if a child dies? What should we say? Like now you go to a janazah and the one who dies or the one who died is actually a child. What should you say in the salah while you're praying? Actually expected you to say. I mentioned that last time, but maybe you were not here. I said the dua for the one who dies as a boy or before the age of puberty is to make dua for his parents. Make dua for his parents. So after the 3rd takbir, you make dua for the parents. Allah give them patience. Allah make him a shafi'ah. Right? Oh Allah, forgive them because of him, right? You make dua for the parents. The child is innocent. He didn't commit any sin, right? So this is a child. So this is also something should be done. You make dua in the salah for the one who lost his child, for the parents. That actually we mentioned. I don't want to repeat just for the sake of time. We're gonna go ahead and talk about the next part. The next part, which is so important because many innovations are being done. Many innovations are being done when it comes to this part. Right? Subhanallah. I mentioned a girl also. Did I mention a girl should be shrouded in also 1 shirt? She can be 1 shirt. And 2 shrouds. 1 shirt and 2 shrouds. A shirt and shrouds for a girl, but if she's a woman, it will be of course for 5. She would be shrouded in 5 pieces. We said now the integral part of the funeral prayer, standing upright. Of course, within the conditions of the funeral prayer, we mentioned the intention, right? The condition, facing the Qibla. You cannot pray janazah without facing the Qibla. Concealing one's aura when, like in Allah Salam, right? The aura should be covered, men and women, of course. Wudu. Some people, they don't even know that there is a wudu required for Salat al-Janazah. They come and pray, so I would miss it. Let me just go ahead and pray, even if he doesn't have wudu. Is it okay to pray Janazah without wudu? Huh? It's not okay. SubhanAllah, I've heard many people, they come to pray and say, I don't have wudu, but if I go to make wudu, I'll come back, janazah will be over. What should I do now? Pray without wudu or go and make wudu and janazah will be over? Wudu is, cannot make salah without wudu in the salah. I mentioned before, what if you miss salat al-janazah? You just come after the 2nd takbir or after the 3rd, whatever. What should you do now? Like you come in, and then the imam is in salah. and he finished the first and the second takbir, say, and then you join him after the second or after the third, whatever. What should you do after he finishes? After he makes salam, what should you do it? You finish with him, you live with him? What should you do? You should make it up. You should make up what you have missed. You should make up what you have missed. After he finishes salah, you just missed 2 takbir, make them. But make sure that the janazah is still there. The deceased is still in front of you. So try to make them to rush, finish quickly, right before they lift it, before they move the janazah, right? So just go, you can go inside, you can go inside. So this is very important. If you miss the whole salah, you come after they finish. What should you do now? You come to the masjid after they finish the janazah, the salah. What should I do? Yeah. You can make salah. Yes, you can go and make salah again. But now they moved and they went to the cemetery. Say, they went to the cemetery. What should you do now? Can you pray there? In the graveyard?
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Of course you can. The only salah that you can do it in the cemetery is a janazah. The only salah. Any other salah you cannot do prayer. You cannot pray asr, zuhr. That's haram. To pray in the cemetery, any salah other than janazah is haram. Even is not accepted according to many of the scholars. Right? But only janazah, because the Prophet he did it. It is the beauty of this deen. Everything you do, you mention the Prophet what he did. Yes, one day he missed the janazah because he didn't know about it. And subhanAllah, in the morning, he asked about this lady. She was cleaning the masjid, right? Always. And he asked, and they said, she died, Ya Rasulullah. And we don't actually want to annoy you, you were like sleeping. And he said, no, guide me to her grave. And he went to the grave and he prayed over there. We mentioned this hadith last time. Also, avoiding of any physical impurity, have to be clean, pure. And both the one performing it, can we pray janazah over somebody who was not Muslim? He has to be Muslim, of course. And attend the janazah, attend the funeral procession after offering the funeral prayer if they are in the neighborhood, right? And being legally accountable. These are actually the conditions. But the integral part of the funeral salah, standing upright, qiyam, right? Saying how many takbirs? At least 4. The first one we said, what should we say after the first takbir? We should say what? Al-Thana only? Al-Fatiha. Don't say in this takbir, don't say what? Don't say the dua al-istiftah, which we call it Thana. You call it Thana, right? Don't say it. Right away, go ahead and say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Read the-Fatiha. Right away. Read the-Fatiha. Don't say Subhanallah bihamdik أتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك. Don't say it. Say the-Fatiha. Read the-Fatiha right away. Who was doing that? Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas, he used to recite the-Fatiha out loud. Why? Because some people said don't read the-Fatiha. So Ibn Abbas, Habru al-Ummah, this scholar, he used to recite the-Fatiha in janazah out loud. And he said what? لِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّهَا sunnah. For them to know it is a sunnah. Sunnah means what? In the way of Muhammad. As we mentioned before, the meaning of the word sunnah doesn't mean preferable, mustahab. It means what? It is his way, right? The Sahaba used the word sunnah not to refer to something which is not wajib. No. They used the word sunnah to refer to something from the way of Muhammad. This is his deen, his way. Unlike the fuqaha who came later, they used the word sunnah to differentiate between what is obligatory and what is not obligatory. So they use the word sunnah to say it's not obligatory, it is sunnah means it's preferable, mustahab. But the Sahaba, no.
I just want to
Yeah.
clarify myself.
Yeah.
So once we go to janazah, before the first takbir, we say salat. Subhanakallahumma wa
Before the takbir?
No. When Imam lead the janazah.
After the first takbir?
Yeah, but first we say Allah Akbar, then he says Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabarak ismuka wa ta'ala jalla sanauka. Then started A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, alhamdulillahi rabbil
No,
alamin.
it's
Just want to
better.
clarify that.
Yeah, say Fatiha only.
Uh,
Yeah, because it was not narrated that Prophet ﷺ he read Thana. It was narrated in the regular Salat. But in Janazah, also used to read
Whatever
Al-Fatiha.
said jalla sanauka, then we start.
You say Al-Fatiha right away.
Al-Fatiha.
Al-Fatiha, right?
Thank you.
This is after the first. And then the second, asking Allah to do it, to make His Salah, to confer His blessing. This is the second, right? And then the third, I mentioned that, to do it, to make dua for the mayyit, deceased person. And also after the fourth one, you do it, you also make dua again for the mayyit and for yourself and for Muslims in general, right? And when you finish salah by taslim, you can end salah by one taslim or two taslims. Both are correct. Okay. You can end by one taslim, say assalamu alaikum, like that. Don't do that. Assalamu alaikum, right? A little bit to the right side, that's it. You can finish now. Or you can do two taslims normally, like as usual, right? Okay. Now the funeral itself. You raise your hand every time you say Allahu Akbar and Salah, or don't you raise your hand? Actually, scholars differed whether to raise your hand or not. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he used to raise his hand. And Ibn Umar, he was so keen to follow the Prophet ﷺ. That's why scholars said Ibn Umar, he wouldn't do that if he hadn't seen the Prophet ﷺ do it. If he hadn't seen him doing that, he wouldn't do it. Ibn Umar, these are actually narrated by an authentic narration. Ibn Umar, he used to raise his hand in every takbir. Allah, like we do in Eid, right? Some scholars said, don't raise your hand. This is anyway, you just choose. Actually, some scholars said, you believe Ibn Umar, he wouldn't dare. Ibn Umar is special because he was keen to follow every single step of the Prophet, every single step. So he said he wouldn't dare to do something like that without being sure it's done by the Prophet or it was done. So you raise your hand, it's okay, right? Say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم before the Fatiha, of course, right? You being quiet. People just sometimes just make commotion and no, be quiet in the janazah, right? Of course, you go to your right hand or over your left hand. This is known as you pray, right? Okay. We mentioned this, how to make, and we mentioned the dua, how to make dua to the person who died. Oh Allah, make his grave full of light. It's better to need this dua, right? Oh Allah, make his grave piece of Jannah. Oh Allah, forgive his sins or her sins. She's a woman. Oh Allah, have mercy on him. Oh Allah, you can say, oh Allah, he actually obeyed you, right? In the most beloved thing to you, which is, what is the most beloved commandment to Allah? Tawheed. He was muwahhid. And oh Allah, he didn't disobey you in the ugliest thing to you, which is what is the most, what is the actually, most hateful thing to Allah? Shirk. So say, oh Allah, he did Islam and he didn't commit shirk, so forgive what is in between. Allahumma إنه قد أطاعك في أحب الأشياء إليك وهو التوحيد ولم يعصك في أبغض الأشياء إليك وهو الشرك فاغفر له ما بينهما. Oh Allah, forgive him. So you ask Allah for him to be forgiven. And in dua you can say around these lines will be okay, inshallah. And for the kids, we say to make dua for his parents. May Allah give them patience. May Allah make him a reason to enter Jannah. All of these dua you say, right, as we mentioned before. Now, the point of today, the funeral itself. It's said it's a collective duty upon Muslims who know about the death of a Muslim to carry his coffin to the grave. We call it what? Fard kifaya. MashaAllah. Fard kifaya is a communal obligation. Is a communal or a collective duty, right? So if some of Muslims do it, khalas. The others, they don't have to do anything else. So burial is legalized through both the Quran and Sunnah. Means burial is in the Quran and Sunnah, to how to bury and why to bury. We don't actually cremate the bodies. We don't burn them, right? We have to bury. Why? Allah said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Mursalat, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said what? أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ كِفَاتًا أَحْيَاءً وَأَمْوَاتًا. Have we not made the earth a container of the living and the dead? So the earth is for us to walk on it when we are alive and to be buried in it when we die. And Allah also said, Surah Abasa, right? Which means that He causes his death and provides a grave for him. ثم أماته فأقبره. أماته, He causes him to die, and then He actually provides a grave for him. ثم أماته فأقبره. Right? So besides, there are numerous hadith concerning burial, stating that it's an act of devotion and dutifulness, signifying honor and concern for the deceased. That's why it's very important for as a community to have our own cemetery. It's very important, actually. To be honest, it's not something. It's not a joke. And if any community in the West, especially in the West, right, has the opportunity and the chance to own their own cemetery, they have to work so hard to get it, because it's fard. Because you cannot bury a Muslim with the non-Muslims. He has to be buried with Muslims, right? So, and Muslims cemetery cemetery has its own rulings, right? Whenever you go there, you have to say the greeting. Unlike the non-Muslim cemetery, you have to say something else to make dua against. Right? قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وإنما مررت بقبر مشرك فبشره بالنار. Wherever you pass by a disbeliever grave, give him a glad tiding of hellfire. So it's not a glad tiding, it is in a sarcastic way. Right? So tell him that أبشر بما يسوءك تجر على وجهك وظهرك في النار. You say to him, you know what? Wait for your destination. You will be dragged on your face and on your back in the hellfire. قال أينما مررت بقبر مشرك فبشره بالنار. Right? Subhanallah. So he said it's act of the sunnah to have our own cemetery. And to escort the deceased to his grave. This is also one of the sunnah, to escort him, to follow him to his grave. Right? And the grave is not the final destination, as some people might say. Grave is one station, not a destination. What is the destination? MashaAllah. For the believers, may Allah make us from the believers, right? Or for the hellfire for the disbeliever. As it's stated in the two Sahih and Bukhari and Muslim, قال رسول الله whoever this merit and this value and this reward of attending the janazah, whoever attends the funeral procession until he performs the funeral prayer for it, will get what? A reward equal to one qirat. So qirat is like what? One mountain of reward. Subhanallah. One mountain of reward. One qirat. And whoever accompanies it until burial will get until the cemetery will get a reward equal to two qirats, two mountains. Subhanallah. And when he was asked, what are two qirat? He replied, they are like two huge mountains of reward. So this is very important. And whoever escorts the deceased to the grave, another hadith said that, right? However, Muslim said, whoever goes out accompanying a funeral from its house, offers prayer for it, means for janazah, and then follows it until the deceased is buried. He said he will get two qirats. Anyway, so the Prophet, he enjoins us to escort the deceased to the grave. He said also it's act of the sunnah for those following the janazah to take part in carrying the coffin, right? Just try to take part and to carry the deceased, right? If possible. There is no harm in carrying the coffin in a car, or some people say, hey, I have to. No, you can put it him in a car or even on an animal, as it used to do back in these days, right? They used to put on a horse or a dog, whatever, right? Nowadays you can put it in the car. You don't have to carry. Some people think, oh, I have to carry. No, you don't have to carry. It's okay if you can, but you don't have to, right? Especially if the graveyard is distant, it's not actually, so how would you just, let people do that? It's also act of the sunnah to hurry up with the dead body. Hurry up. Don't just slow down. No, hurry up. Why? Because this hadith said that, he said, this is Bukhari and Muslim. He said, hurry up with the dead body, for if it's righteous, you are forwarding it to good. You're going to give him, you're going to let him go to his good station, good, place. And if it's otherwise, then you are putting off an evil thing which is around your necks. You get rid of him. May Allah forgive us. He said, however, the funeral procession shouldn't be excessively fast. And you should also take care of consider the others. Thus, carrying the coffin and those following them should be in a state of tranquility and quietness. Another mistake people do, they go to Janazah, Allahu Akbar, Takbir, La ilaha illallah. This is not actually Sunnah, against the Sunnah. He said to be quiet, tranquility. Just ponder over your life and ponder over yourself. One day you will be in his position. So it's not actually a moment to say anything. There's no any adhkar to be said, nothing to be said. Be quiet. He didn't do that. So would you be more righteous than him? So don't say anything. They should never raise their voices with the recitation or even Quran. Don't need anything or anything else. Or even, he said, whether it's tahdeel, say Allahu Akbar or any adhkar, right? Or saying Rahimahullah, don't say, why you're going, don't say anything, right? Because all such acts are mere bid'ah. He says what? Bid'ah. He said it's bid'ah. It's bid'ah to say, yes, it's bid'ah to speak. Because from the masjid until janazah, you shouldn't say anything. At the same time, don't also base you on the other hand, on the contrary, you see people who do what? Who talk about business and life and they might joke, and no, it's not actually moment to crack jokes now. Just try to focus and subhanAllah, ponder over this situation. He said, besides, it's prohibited for women to follow the funeral procession. For women, can they go to the janazah? He said it's prohibited. Atiyya, radiallahu anha, she narrated, we women were forbidden by the Prophet ﷺ to follow funeral procession. She said, nuhina an natba' janais. She said that, Atiyya said that, we were forbidden to follow the funeral procession. So don't go. For women, some people, they are driven by their emotions, right? Oh, let them go. No, don't let them go. He said, Mu'atiyya, one of the Sahabiyat, right? Sahabiyya. She said, we women were forbidden to follow the funeral procession. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, women didn't go out with funeral procession, for it's a ceremony restricted only to men. Subhanallah. Now the feminism movement will come against us, but we don't care. Moreover, it's an act of the sunnah to deepen the grave and make it white. Why? He said, dig graves and make them wide and deep. Don't make grave tight, don't make them wide and deep. Right? Also, act of sunnah to cover the grave of the woman when putting her body therein, because all her body is regarded as awrah. Imagine that. So even when she is dead, it says she's awrah. To cover her body. Subhanallah. In addition, it's an act of sunnah. Imagine, subhanallah, even when she is dead, it says she has to be covered. And some women, they don't know anything which is covering, except only when they die. When they die, they wake up. Oh yes, of course they do. They wake up in the hereafter. But when they die, they will be covered. Before that, they were not covered. That's why one of the guys said, don't make my sister the first day for you to cover your body is the last day for you to live. And the moment that you go to your grave. Don't make it like that. He said also it's sunnah when you put the deceased to say what? How can I say? When you put him in his grave, to say something. Now it's sunnah to say something. Bismillah. What? وَعَلَى مِلَّةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. You know that, but just want to remind you. So Bismillah, in the name of Allah, and according to the religion of Allah's Messenger. The one who does, say Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means in the name of Allah, we put him in his grave and according to the sunnah of the Prophet. Also, he said, because he said that when you put your dead person in the grave, say Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulillah. Hadith by Tirmidhi. Also the mayyit, the deceased, is to be put in his grave on his right side or left side? Right side. Nowadays, subhanAllah, it's very difficult. Sometimes you will facing the Qibla. Two things should be done. His right side and facing the Qibla. So even when we dig the grave, that's why we need to have our own cemetery. So when you ask people to dig, you have to understand that. Okay, when you dig the grave, make the grave facing the Qibla, try to make that, and because when you put the mayyit, he has to be on his right side, facing the Qibla. Right side, not on his back, on his right side. Not laying down his back, on his right side. Right? And to try to lean him, to let him, like, subhanAllah, lean to something, right? Facing the Qibla. Because he said it is your Qibla in your life and after your death. Qibla in our life and after we die too. And after putting him in the grave, a brick, a stone or something, or some earth are to be put under his head as a pillow. Pillow, right? The pillow, right? You put it under his head to put some kind of stone or brick or something, small brick, under his head when he is, subhanAllah, in his grave. He said, besides, he is to be put close to the front wall of his grave. The grave has a wall, right? Put him in the front, not in the back. Also, some earth is to be put behind his back as a support, as it support, to make him lean on it, to some dirt or something, or some, some earth has to be put behind him to just support him, right? Lest he should fall on his face, because now, as you know, he's like that. He's right like that. So now you have to put something behind him, otherwise he might fall down here or he might fall down, right? Just try to, support him, his body. That doesn't happen. Right? What do they do? Nowadays, they put him on, laying down in his back like that. No, that's not right.
Yeah, but in a coffin box,
This is a problem. Coffin box is not even, but the coffin box is not from Sunnah.
On the grave, they can't open it and slide it.
I don't. By the way, we need to ask about this point. It's very important. The coffin box, is it mandatory to have it as Muslims, or we can actually say no, don't wanna, or can take him out? Now there's no COVID now, right? I mean, in normal cases, can you take him out and say no, we want him to be, or it is something must? We have to ask. Sometimes we don't ask. We take it as is. Okay, this is a tradition. They put him in the casket. Okay, he has to be in the casket. Who said that? Who said that? We need to. I don't know actually. I need to ask. Is it okay? And legally, what's the problem? We can take him out as a body, right? His body out of his casket and put him. The Prophet, he never put anybody in casket. He never put anybody in casket. Maybe in, subhanAllah, may Allah save us, kind of accident or
Country, but not in our states.
The Prophet, he didn't do that. And box was known. Box was not something actually, unknown. It was known for them, but they didn't use it. That's why we said we have to. And the box is not gonna allow him to be all of these sunnah to be applicable. How would you apply all of these sunnah, right? So this point has to be. This is his right. The right of the last thing he would get from the dunya is to get this sunnah. And last thing, subhanAllah, and he taught us all of these things. Huge chapter. You can read all the books of fiqh. All these books contain these chapters. How to bury. It's not like a joke. It's not something like subhanAllah. Sorry, we don't bury a cat. We don't bury a cat. He's a human. He's a Muslim. He has his rights to be buried according to the sunnah. So to bury him, we need to understand. He said also here, also some earth is to be put behind his back. We said as support, lest he should fall on his face or be overturned on his back. Both back and forth. He has to be supported. Afterwards, the whole of the grave is to be closed with bricks and clay to hold it together. And then earth is to be piled up on his grave, using no earth other than that around his grave. Use only which is around his grave. The top of the grave is to be of a height equal to a palm of the hand. Don't make build. He said don't build over any grave. It's haram to build. Just you can make it like that. You know this height? This height? It's okay. Why don't you just recognize that there's a grave here, but don't build on it. It's going to come now to mention that. I'm going to finish. It said, and to be shaped like a humpback, so that the flood water, if any, would flow down. Like, you know, the kind of houses we have here, right? So this flood is going to flow down and doesn't affect it. On the other hand, some pebbles are to be put on the grave, which should be frequently watered to make earth settle and stick to the ground, nor scatter. This is something actually you can put water. Why? Doesn't have anything to do with planting or anything. No, water just to keep the dust, down, right? To keep the earth down and not to be scattered. He said, then, as for the idea behind making the grave that high, it's to make it distinguishable. Distinguishable means recognized. This is actually a grave. That's it. For people, lest they tread on it. It's haram to walk over. It's another mistake here. And if we have our own graveyard, we would build it in a way that allows people to go without treading on it. I come to know the hadith, very actually scary hadith now. The punishment of the one who walks over a grave. Huge punishment. He said what? He said here, beside there is no, he said, if you actually were to sit on an ember, hot coal, if you do that, it's way better for you than treading on a grave. Even if this ember would penetrate your clothes and go to your body and burn your body, would be way better than sitting on a grave. Sitting on a grave. What about like you walk or somebody, subhanAllah, it's not, it's haram. So there is no harm to in putting some large upright bricks on both ends of the grave to make its limit clearly marked and distinguished without writing anything on them. Another point, another mistake. People do what? They write on the grave, right? They write even Quran. Wallah, I saw that in this Washington Memorial. They write Quran. And people, what happens? People don't see, and even they go and tread on it. And those who work over there, they don't care because they don't even they're not Muslims, and they tread on and over the Quran. Have you seen that? كل نفس ذائقة الموت إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Allah's name is on the ground, and people not only that, it's on the ground. Still is not even right. And the kalimat la ilaha illallah and subhanallah. See, this is haram. Even if you write the name, it's haram. Sahaba, look to these Sahaba at Baqiyah. You went there, have you been there? At Baqiyah. Have you ever seen anyone, any name? By the way, they were able to write. Sahaba, they were able to write, they were writing, right? They never, because he said, don't write on the grave. He said it's desirable, it's a sunnah, to stand at the grave of the deceased after burying him to supplicate Allah. Even after you make dua, to stand there and ask Allah and ask His forgiveness for him. This is because once burial was over, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to stand at the grave and say, استغفروا لأخيكم واستغفروا له التثبيت. Seek forgiveness for your Muslim brother and beg steadfastness from Allah for him, for he is being what? Yus'al, questioned now. These two things we should focus when we go to the graveyard. Ask Allah to forgive him and to make him what? Steadfast, because he's being questioned. Two things, focus on them, right? It's bid'ah to recite Quran at graveyard. It's bid'ah. For neither the Prophet ﷺ nor his honorable companions were reported to have done so. Such a bid'ah must be avoided, because every bid'ah is an error. Subhanallah, people go there and they recite Quran. I attended recently, said the last two ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, and this one will recite the first ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, and this will stand here, and this will stand there, and they will recite Quran, and subhanallah, this is an emotional moment. It wasn't right to just argue, because he would go back and forth at this moment, and you would be eventually labeled as, you know what, the one who is a troublemaker. So you would keep quiet, but I said, we have to learn that without being in an emotional situation. Like, alhamdulillah, we are okay now, nobody dies, there's no any problem, we are here. So that when you go, how we know that? But you go and teach them over there, how would you teach them over there? right? Make argument and debate, and it's not gonna happen actually. It's gonna be something good. But I saw that make bid'ah. Allah al-Azim, I was like, astaghfirullah. And it's done by some people who supposed to teach others. On the other hand, it's prohibited to build over graves. Plaster them. No, plaster means what? People like do it. Like painting. Subhanallah. Or write on them. Why? Now you mentioned three things. To build, big Maulana. You look to his grave, big building over it. A dome. No dome. They build a dome over his grave. Right? It's haram. To build over graves, plaster them, or write on them. He said to illustrate Jabir ibn Abdullah, what he said. He said, look at this hadith in Sahih Muslim. Allah's Messenger ﷺ forbade that the graves should be plastered or be used as sitting places, or a building should be built over them. Hadith in Sahih Muslim. نهى عن ذلك. نهى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم أن تجسس القبور أو أن يجلس عليها أو أن يبنى عليها. He has forbidden three things. This hadith, authentic hadith of Sahih Muslim. Also he said, Jabir also, he said the Prophet forbade plastering the graves, writing on them, building on them, or treading upon them. Another addition. What is the addition here? Writing. Right? So now, how many things now are forbidden? 4. This addition added one more thing, which is writing. So it's haram to write. Haram to write. Who said that? Hadith, traceable hadith, marfu'. Hadith marfu'. Authentic. Hadith authentic, subhanAllah. Jabir narrated 2 hadith. One of them mentioned 3 things, and the other mentioned 4 things. What are these 4 things? First, he forbid what? Plastering, right? Keep the brick as is. Don't decorate, please. Don't decorate, right? Now people. And then what else he said? And writing. First one was building, right? And sitting, plastering, sitting, and building. This narration, the second one, narration added one more thing, which is writing. Authentic narration. So those who even write anything, don't write. The reason for this prohibition is that such acts are means leading to polytheism, and they may make people's heart attached to graves. Look, eventually all of us will die, so don't attach your heart to the graves. On the other hand, many ignorant people become so attached to the graves when they see them in a form of well-decorated structures. Some people, they are very ignorant. See a grave, big grave, mashallah, they're like, oh. So the one who's inside, suppose he must be actually very VIP. So let's ask him. And then the big shirk. And then he said, just to conclude here, it's also prohibited to light graves. Light what? To put lamp in the grave is prohibited. With lamps or anything of the kind. Can you put light in the grave? They said put candles. They put what? No, it's haram. It's haram. He said the prohibition extends to include establishing mosques over graves and performing salah at them or facing them in salah. It's shirk to face in a qabr or in grave. In addition, it's prohibited for women to visit graves according to the hadith. Subhanallah. May Allah curse the authentic hadith, by the way. May Allah curse. Hadith has been narrated by what? Marhum, Bukhari, Muslim, النسائي, الترمذي, ابن ماجه. قال لعن رسول الله لعن الله زوارات القبور. May Allah curse the women who visit the graves, the people who build mosques over them, and those who establish mosques and light lamps therein. Subhanallah. This hadith by the Sunan, as it Tirmidhi, Nasai, Ibn Majah, Abu Dawud. It's also in the Sahih hadith. He said, may Allah curse the Jews and Christians. Why? He said, لعن الله اليهود والنصارى. Why? He said, for they built the places of worship at the graves of their prophets. Even the Prophet ﷺ, you cannot build over his grave. Right? he said those are cursed. This is also because what do you call decorating graves by means of building structures over them and the like is the origin of shirk, polytheism. So only two questions, guys. I'm going to mention this chapter. It's prohibited as well to degrade graves through walking on them, right? Treading upon them with shoes, sitting on them, making them piles of garbage, or using them as drainage ditches. Abu Hurairah also narrated this hadith. It's better that one of you should sit on live coals. It's better, which would burn his clothing and come in contact with his skin, than that he should sit on a grave. Hadith Sahih, Rawah Muslim. Imagine that. He said it's better for you to be burned by fire and sitting on a grave. Now you go to the graveyard in the cemetery, you will go and make a dua and stuff. What are you doing, guys? There's a grave here. Okay. He will look to you. It's not time to advise us now, man. Just come please. You don't see what's going on. Now you advise us, please. Okay, I see. Astaghfirullah. And he doesn't know the hadith. Don't even subhanAllah, I have to ask. He said here, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, last point, if only we Muslims reflect on the implications of the Prophet's prohibition of sitting on the graves, leaning on them, he said, and treading upon them, we would come to know that the Prophet ﷺ instructs us to venerate the inhabitants of the graves from their heads being trodden on with footwear. He said this is the end of the statement from Qayyim. This is the end of this part of the Alhamdulillah. The last thing is what is giving the condolences, which is azab, right? To give your condolences to somebody, right, who is afflicted by that disaster. This is the end of this chapter. We ask Allah Azza to make us from those who avoid bid'ah, from those who stick to the sunnah, and we ask Allah to grant all of us the best ending. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our sins. May Allah forgive the believing men and women who died. May Allah forgive our families who died. Say Ameen. May Allah forgive our fathers and our mothers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all of them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make them in Jannah. May Allah make them in Jannah. Allahumma Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all of us. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Any question, brother? Question? Huh? Any question?
They make benches right next to grave in Pakistan, so people can sit and do tilawat.
Here again, it's not okay to do any tilawah over there in the graveyard. Any Quran or Isal. It cannot be done over there. Even this scholar said you can't do it, said don't do it in the graveyard. Never. Even those who say yes, you can read Quran and make dua, said it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have. It cannot be done in the graveyard. Because Quran has to be recited anywhere, not in the graveyard. Sahaba didn't do that. Look, the deen is from Muhammad, right? This is our deen. This is deen or not? It's deen, right? So I have to take it from him, understand? To make benches. Why didn't he do that? Why did he say that? Do you know that we love Quran more than Sahaba? Sahaba didn't recite Quran on the graves. They didn't do that in the cemetery. They never did that. Never, ever did that. So why should we do and build benches over there and sit on there? You said to take rest. It's okay. But to sit over there, of course, away from the graves, away outside the graves. Right? If you want to take rest but to sit there and to make it for people to come and recite Quran, say I want to make a song or just to send it to the mate. That's sheer bid'ah, completely pure bid'ah. We ask Allah to forgive us.